it's sad. I actually feel quite emotional about this one. People are going to look at this and probably think it's really, really sad. A grown man getting quite emotional about opening a package. But to say, 13 videos ago, that's part of about 4 months, 5 months, I had a reason I was doing it. I had an aim. I had a goal. I had a collection that I was looking to put together that eluded me when I was a kid. But this right here is almost in this box. This is the culmination of all of these Go Figure videos, all these weeks of the hunting. And I can finally say that the hunt is officially over. Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to a brand new edition of Go Figure. Now after 3-4 months, what is this now? 13, 14 episodes of this in. We are quite possibly got now the biggest show in terms of the most important one that I've done so far. So if you have enjoyed this journey so far, thank you so much for being with me. And this is by no means where it all ends, but this is one of those big moments that I've been kind of waiting for, and we're not going lightly. We got a few things to unpack. Let's get over there, roll those credits. Okay. Seems like quite a while since I was at the table here to do these, but I thought, for old time's sake. So we got a few boxes here. Now, I touched on in the last episode that I released shortly before this one. Well, a little bit of a rampage in recent weeks in terms of selling stuff to raise funds, buying stuff because there was things on my list that were there that were available. I've learned not to dither too much when you see something you want because it soon goes. And I got to the stage where I had so much I was waiting for, I couldn't remember what everything was when it was rolling in. So I'll try my best to remember where all of these have come from along the way as well. So start with this little one. Start as you mean to go on. And I'll remember when I see what this is, obviously where it's come from and where I got it, like I normally do. Seems to have gone in the wrong way. I think there we go. Get into it. There we go. So two for the price of one, two for the price of the same package, but obviously two figures that I paid for. So let's take a look and see who's gone. This is going a little bit. I always seem to say this, a little bit away from the lines that the kind of themes that I've been going along. But while they were available, I was getting figures that I just wanted and I've always wanted. And this guy had to be there. Papa Shango. Now, hasn't covered any of the packaging, so apologies again if I get the line wrong. I've got to say this is obviously an elite, as I've come to realise. Whether it's the Legends series or what, I'm not sure. But this guy had to be in there. I grew up, as I've said before, a wrestling fan. 1991 was the year I became a fan. So 92 is when I really started to understand what was going on and who was around. And this was one of the guys that really I used to love watching him because he was one, I've said before on my podcast, one that always used to give me fear when he was in there with my favourites because he was so demonic, so powerful. Papa Shango, such an awesome character. It follows on quite nicely from the last episode when I've unpacked Karma, the Supreme Fighting Machine version, which is what Charles Wright came back as after, a couple of years after he left as Papa Shango. And the detail on these. So Papa Shango was always one of my favourite Hasbros. I remember roughly when I got him, used to see him in the Argos catalogue. I was a bit annoyed that he used to come with his top hat and that you couldn't take the accessories off back then, but this one obviously has come without any accessories. I have got a top hat that I'm watching on eBay that someone's selling for these figures, so maybe I'll eventually get that. I think you can get him with the bone necklace and that, but it's just such an awesome character. Now, this came from a guy who is in the Wrestling Figures UK group. Again, one of those great sources of information and just deals and people that you find. And I've already bought off him. He was the same guy that I got Justin Hawk Bradshaw off a couple of weeks ago, and he had these two who I'm about to show you for sale. Great price he was. I was like, gotta have it. So Papa Shango joined the collection. Really, really happy with that. So yeah, maybe I am going. I'm not going to say this is going to be the start of a particular line, but obviously being a 91, 92, 93 child when I grew up with wrestling, probably, I will hark back to those days as well. And this guy here is one that I always wanted. One of those Hasbros, you were lucky if you found him. And although there are many versions of him out there now, I had to have this one. So the 1-2-3 Kid. Not only the 1-2-3 Kid, because you can get him in the sort of the black and white gear that you saw him most in then from about 94 onwards. This is the classic 1993 through to very early 94 1-2-3 Kid. Bright blue singlet leotard thing, the bright colours, the numbers. It was just this pop. And if you've seen anything of my podcast or heard anything of my podcast, you'll know I've had Tom Fleming on a couple of times. He was a fantastic guy to talk to. He is the guy that designed the 1-2-3 Kids gear, amongst others, back at this time, 92, 93. And yeah, I always wanted a 1-2-3 Kid. I always had little figures in my fig fed that I used as a 1-2-3 Kid. He was just such an awesome guy. He's such an underdog back then before he became X-Pac and all that. You rooted for him. And I am on the hunt for one of the newly released Survivor Series the Survivor Series, where you've got the 1-2-3 Kid from the 1995 gear. I need him for my 95, 96, but I had to have this. And when I saw he was available alongside Papa Shango, take me back to those days when I was like 8, 9 years old. Yeah, awesome. And then this is going to look great on display. Just this gear is fantastic. So I would love the Lightning Kid version as well, which is him in the gear that he was wearing when he first debuted, when he beat Razor Ramon. Now, I think you can buy it I touched on it in one of my shows recently. I think you can buy it in a special set with Razor Ramon, and it was the Monday Night Raw when they had the 15 grand challenge or something like that. So yeah, maybe I'll find that. You never know. Let's move on to the next one. That's what I'm getting myself into. Okay. So this is another great little box, great little deal that I did. A guy, again, through the Wrestling Figures UK group. I think it's such a. I'm so glad I found that group, because so many of my figures that I've got have come through there. And I think I happened to post out. I put a post out in the group when it's just after I shot the beginning of the last episode, where I was showing off the Razor, Ringmaster, and Bam Bam Bigelow that I got. I had a couple of people ask, what others are you looking for, for that part of the collection? And this guy responded, or he messaged me and said, I have a few off of your list if you're interested. And I was like, well, I can't say no. Knowing I'm at this stage of the journey anyway, I'm just trying to tick off all the ones that I can that I want to get. So no particular order. So these three are all additions to my New Generation 95-96 wing of my collection. And I've talked about this guy before because I've got other versions of him, and I think I mentioned that I wanted one of the newer elite type ones to go into that collection, and it had to be this version, Mankind. Now, we are not talking about the 1998 onwards Mankind. We had the white, dress shirt on, and that we are talking about the 1996 debut type version of Mankind that he then saw through to late 97. So all just the brown gear, and this is absolutely spot on. I referenced this was one of my favourite Jakks BCAs when I was growing up. So I have already got one of those in the Jakks BCA collection. I needed to have him in this New Generation line because he was one of the key guys that I watched when, 1996, when I was 12 years old. I was watching Shawn Michaels live the boyhood dream. I was watching The Undertaker come up against this guy and almost looked, as we said back then, he almost looked human. He was the first guy that came along and really took The Undertaker out. And I preferred that version of Mankind when he was that kind of really sadistic, demonic heel. And this is such a fantastic figure. The only thing I will say that I prefer on the BCA is the detail on his boots, because he had those sort of straps that come down over his boots in a cross. They haven't got this on haven't got those on this version. So that's the only thing I think is missing, but it's awesome. And yeah, he had to be there. So thank you very much. Next one, to add to it, one that I was watching a few variations of, and I didn't pull the trigger on it, probably because this, it was meant to come with these ones in this deal. So we're talking about the man they call Vader. Again, I grew up watching him in WCW, early 90s when he was there, but it was 1996 when he came over to the WWF at the Royal Rumble. And I don't know why, but it was this V on his tights that was really important to me, because there are other versions of Vader out there, I think, where they don't have that. For some reason, that image on that part of the attire has always really stuck with me. And that takes me back to that time, the 1996 Vader. Again, when he was monstrous, you thought he could win the world title. I went into SummerSlam 96 thinking he was beating Shawn Michaels for the title, like he was supposed to. This is such an awesome figure. I want to say it's a bit flat at the back. There's one thing with these big guys when they sort of mould them. They don't make them look as big as they were. I mean, he's fairly slender, really, compared to what Vader actually was. But, such a cool likeness. I mean, look at that. Sadly, can't take the mask off of this one. The other version I want is the one where it comes in like his fur cape with his very early WCW run full head mask and that. But maybe that will come another day. But such a cool likeness. And it's just everything. I had the classic Superstars one, the original Jakks one, years ago, where I had the soft goods, where they did the soft good kind of attire, which seemed to hang off of these big guys. It wasn't a very good thing at all. So I'm glad Mattel obviously had the sense to go just with almost like the printed kind of tights on there. But yeah, there we go. So Mankind and Vader. And this next one, again, a bit like the Ultimate Warrior that I got in the last video. This was a guy I kind of forgot about. In a way, forgot about that he needed to be in this wing of the collection. You can probably see who it might be through the plastic, through the bubble wrap, but there is Yokozuna. And it specifically had to be the one with the beard, because this signifies 1995-96 Yokozuna when he came back at WrestleMania 11, won the tag team titles with Owen Hart, and then through to the next year when he left Camp Cornette, he feuded with Vader, and then sadly he did sort of wind up then a bit of a bit part, and then he ends up leaving. What I will say to who I bought this off, thank you so much. He's actually put the jacket, the plate, whatever you call it, kimono thing, I can't remember, from another Yokozuna figure. He's put it in here, but this looks absolutely stunning. So thank you so much. And I mean, through to here, you know, the straps coming down here, where again on the Hasbro and some of the earlier Jakks releases, these were just kind of almost like molded to within the rest of it. These are actually almost loose. They come away. This is really, you know, it's a lot more realistic scan of Yokozuna. Absolutely love that. And this was him, you know, in that phase. He wore a ponytail more than the top knot sort of on his head, the, you know, the bun type thing he had going on. And yep, symbolic of that moment in time, that era that I'm trying to recreate. So that, you know, that little haul there is, I mean, so cool to be, you know, to have at any point, but for them to all arrive at the same time. So, you know, Papa Shango and the 123 Kid, maybe starting another little bit of the collection, which goes back a bit further than I have so far. I've got a few more on my watch list that I may add in some point soon if I don't miss out on them, like the Narcissist Lex Luger. I found him quite cheap. But then you look at Mankind up here, Mankind, Vader, and Yokozuna into the class of 95-96. Very, very cool indeed. I took the camera off its stand there with him thinking that was that, and it was. I got a whole other box here. So this hole just keeps on giving. So let's move that out of the way. Give me a bit of room. And then we get this one. So I do remember what's in this one. Now this, like I was just saying actually, so Papa Shango and the 123 Kid come from that slightly earlier era that I may start to piece together. And there are two in here which actually very neatly fall into that collection. I'm not going to go for, again, completist and try to get everyone from that era, because I could just keep going and going. They have released so many. You know, there's different variations of Bret Hart. There's some classic versions of Shawn Michaels. It's the other guys, I think, the underrepresented ones that I really like. You know, like they've got a new one of El Matador coming out. You know, that you don't see Tito Santana figures much these days, and you know, that's got to be an epic one. That's from that time. So there's two in here which really do fit in with that time. So let's go for the first one here, and absolutely had to be, again, one of those moments when I saw this come available. I've seen it, I've not gone for it before, but then you kind of see it come up with others or on certain things, and you think, I've got to go for it. And I'm sorry, but I don't know how long ago it was I said I wasn't going to have many British Bulldogs in my collection. I think I now have more British Bulldogs than anyone else represented in my collection. I've got the Hasbro, I've got the Bendham, I've got the Jakks BCA, I have got the Monday Night Wars Elite, and now I have got the GOAT version, almost really, one of them, of the British Bulldog. You are talking about 1992 SummerSlam British Bulldog. These are the tights he wore against Bret Hart at Wembley Stadium, and I just love the fact it comes with, and it's attached to him as well by this kind of bands here around his wrist. You can display him with his flag like he used to have. Let's sort that out. So that's over his arms and displayed properly. This is so cool. And again, with Papa Shango and 123 Kid, we're kind of opening up that 92, 93. This is just such a cool figure. I do love the braids era of the British Bulldog. It's probably my favourite of the eras. But saying that, one of the new ones that they announced at San Diego Comic-Con recently, they are doing the 1994 version of the British Bulldog now with the shorts of when he returned in 94 and then sort of early 95. So I will be adding that one as well. So I think the British Bulldog, quite rightly, is probably going to make up a lot. He's going to have a collection of his own one day in my haul. But yeah, such a cool figure. I don't know why I've pondered on this for so long. So this was part of the Medway Wrestling Figures claim sale as part of SummerSlam weekend. Through the Wrestling Figures UK group. So again, if anyone watching this is into figure collecting, particularly wrestling figures, and you're not part of the Wrestling Figures UK group, go get yourself in there. Because so much that goes on. I would have missed out on so much had I not been in there. And like they did at WrestleMania weekend, they had a load of events going on. And Medway do like a picture claim sale, so they stick up pictures and leave them up there for a couple of days, and you just first person that claims them gets them. And this was still available at a cracking price, so I was like, you know what, I've got to do it. So there we go, Davey boy, you're in there again, mate. Very, very pleased with that. Just means now I've got to try and hunt down. I think there is a version of Bret Hart out there in his gear, like 92 gear, and maybe I've got to get him as well now. This next one is from a different line. I haven't collected these before. Ones that I wanted to. When I first saw this line, when it was released some time ago now, I think they've been out for quite a while. It was the style of them is exactly what I loved playing with when I was a kid. And we are talking about the WWE Superstars line from Mattel. But they are almost like Masters of the Universe type bodies and that, and they're awesome. And I knew I needed one. I needed to have one at some point, but this one was definitely one when I knew that they were doing a Tatanka. And not only that, but in his long tights, he didn't wear these for all that long. He debuted in WWF late 91, I think. I think it was called the War Eagle with Chris Chavis at the beginning. And then changed the name to Tatanka when he properly kind of made his debut. And this is what he was wearing. And this is what he wore. This is the kind of gear he wore at WrestleMania 8 when he was up against the model Rick Martel. And sort of by the time SummerSlam rolled around, you saw him then in his, what we saw is his signature look, which was more the trunks with like the loincloth type thing over the top. I absolutely love this early look Tatanka, and it's boxed as well. I probably am going to keep him in the box for a little bit. But there may come a time that actually I do take him out. If this, again, early 90s line takes off, I will probably take him out and display him in there. But he looks very, very cool. Stands up quite well in that, actually. So on the back, you got a great look here of Tatanka. And the others in the line, we got Kurt Angle and the Big Boss Man. Probably is another one I need to get, to be fair. He's one of my favourites as well. So yeah. So that little bit of the haul is very, very cool as well. With the Bulldog and Tatanka, I'm having a blast doing this. This is, getting things like this, picking up stuff that, obviously these didn't exist when I was a kid, but you wanted figures. I loved the Hasbros, but I think I still felt that there was more I wanted. I wanted more realism. These are the kind of figures you would have wanted in your fig fed. But there we go. We can live through it now. So I'm going to head back over to the desk. There's one final piece of the puzzle to add in for this week. So let's head over there. Back over here in my comfy space now for this one. No other reason other than this is a very, very special one. And this is one that I known I was getting. I actually bought it quite a few weeks ago, and I've just been waiting for it to arrive. And I think, it's sad. I actually feel quite emotional about this one. I haven't got my knife. There we go. Can't get into it else. Keep the suspense going. Yeah, people are going to look at this and probably think it's really, really sad. A grown man getting quite emotional about opening a package. But thinking back to when I started this feature, to say 13 videos ago, best part of about 4 months, 5 months, I had a reason I was doing it. I had an aim. I had a goal. I had a collection that I was looking to put together that eluded me when I was a kid. And there were several in there that I thought I would never see. And we've seen, if you've joined me on this journey so far, thank you so much. I hope you've enjoyed it. This has been me trying to have a blast at this whole collecting thing and basing it on around one collection, which has really bled it out into itself, and it's kind of become a monster. But I have absolutely loved doing this. It's put me in touch with some great people. I've actually had a blast. But this right here is almost in this box. This is the culmination of all of these Go Figure videos, all these weeks of the hunting. And I can finally say that the hunt is officially over, because we have what's become the grail for me. It's the one I have gone on about for weeks. It's on my list of still need him, still need him, still need him. Blue Tights, Barry Windham. WCW Galoob, UK exclusive. I didn't think I was going to lay my hands on these. When I managed to get Dustin Rhodes, when I managed to get Big Josh, even the entrance gear, Sting and Luger, it was, they were big ticket items, and I didn't really realize how big this guy was going to be. And then when I started off and realized how, I would say rare, there have been quite a few around. It's just not been affordable. And then by chance, I was in one of the Facebook groups, and a guy posted in there to say basically he had managed to get his hands on 4, and through his store, and 3 of them had already gone by the time I saw the post. There was 1 left, so he was low in price, because obviously you've got the skid marks of doom. Really, what always happens to these Galoobs. I don't care. If I was going to hold out for a mint version, I would be waiting a long time and I would be spending a lot of money. I just needed Blue Tights Barry Windham in my collection, and this is it. We are now talking. This is the massive tick off. This is the missing piece of the puzzle, and we have finally achieved the whole WCW Galoob collection. One thing I didn't realize about this, actually, until you hold it, because you never see this in the pictures, is the black stripe down the trunks. Because you always see them front on and back. You never really get a glimpse of that. I never knew that. That's actually very cool. I never knew there was another variant of Barry Windham until I started this. It was one of my favourite Galoobs when I had my black type version. So the likeness is still fantastic. It's obviously the same mold and everything. It's just different colour tights, different colour wristbands. But yeah, I seem to say Blue Tights so much in the course of this, because of Pillman as well, that we were after. But there we go. 4 months, 5 months, 13 episodes. A lot of fun. We are there at last. So the only thing left to do now is put him somewhere in his rightful place. So here we go. I wasn't too sure if I was going to fit him in here. I've had to temporarily have the Elegante in this holder. He wasn't really fitting very well anyway. PN News standing on the outside. Let's take a look. Let's put him next to Dustin Rhodes, his longtime tag team partner there. There we go. And there we go. We are complete. There's prototypes out there. Obviously the unreleased ones. There was the unreleased PN News, Ricky Morton, Freebirds, and can't remember who else it was. I swear there was another one there, but I'm not aiming for those. They are complete grail pieces. I've got grail pieces in here. That's one of them there. That's another one there. And these two here, they were the ones that I used to see as a kid, or you know, when I was almost too old to then be hunting after them when I was a kid, ironically, and I didn't think I was ever going to have them. You know, Tom Zeng, he was one that I always wanted as a kid. Talking in there, Butch Reed, having the tag team with Doom there, one of my favorites. I mean, this is, yeah, this is a big moment to say finally I have got a complete WCW Galoob collection. If I just zoom out, I've show you where I've got to now. Taking over a little bit more space. Still got to arrange this. This ring is a bit crowded still with guys who I'm going to take out, like the Jax BCAs are going to come out of there, and then these guys, you know, Razor, Karma, Ringmaster, and that, they all belong in there. Probably one of my favourite actual displays at the minute is the Hasbro lot. And yeah, down here, I managed to also lay my hands on a chunk of DVDs. You know, at some point I'll do a bit of a walkthrough about it. This isn't a massive collection compared to others, but you know, I'll do probably a separate video going through this in more detail. And then we got down there the Warrior, got another space in there waiting for something. But yeah, start of the show there. Absolutely, Barry Windham. And the gang is complete. So before I wrap up this quite epic episode, I forgot about something. after everything that I've already kind of unboxed and revealed in that, there was one thing that I forgot to bring in here. It seemed quite fitting actually in this kind of what will be for a while the last sort of regular Go figure. Is for me to pay homage to the guys that kind of inspired me to get into toy collecting as well. It's not just about the whole, you know, fascination and my fandom with wrestling. Going back to childhood, it was I watched guys who gave me that buzz about toy hunting and finding things from my childhood, and it's guys like Lewis from Toy Overdose, Aaron from Empire Toys, 1138. I think I got that right. Paul Toy Scavenger, guys like that I watch every day. And there's been one store that they've all visited that I then was in the vicinity of visiting myself. So a big shout out to the Vintage Toy Company in Portsmouth. So last weekend we had our family trip away to Portsmouth, and I was like, if any opportunity for me to get in there to have a look, and I did. I got in there, so that's very, very cool. So I really just want to shout out to those guys who make the whole toy collecting thing so appealing to guys like me, and you know, show me what fun could be had with that kind of thing. So I went on a little toy hunt myself. I didn't have much money to spend at all. I could have spent all day in there. I wanted to say hi to Ian, the owner, because he's a bit of a celebrity to me. He, you know, he's been in loads of these videos on those channels that I've watched. Fortunately, he was there. He was with a customer at the time. You know, I couldn't sort of interrupt. But you know, if this does ever get back to you guys in the toy community, thank you so much, because this, you know, this really has been so inspiring. So, what did I manage to pick up from the Vintage Toy Monster? One of the earliest figures I think I ever owned as a kid. I'm a massive Ninja Turtles fan, specifically the Hero Turtles version, because that's what it was when I was growing up. So I had to grab a Shredder. Now it's quite funny. This comes without the cape, because my Shredder actually existed most of his time like this, and he was actually part of my wrestling figure fed. Every single figure I had was in my fig fed. So whether it was Turtles, Batman, Jurassic Park, whoever. And my Shredder, actually, he was more like a Great Muta type character. I found, you know, he's slender. He probably was one of those from the Orient, you know, did all those kind of chops and the moonsaults and that. So he was very, very cool. So he's cool to actually have in the collection. Again, you know, I don't mind going into a Turtles collection at some point, which would be fantastic. Adding to that, the little guy here. And I swore I was going to come on here and I was going to remember his name and I was going to sound really impressive because I could just rattle his name off, and I forgot to actually look it up before I started recording. So I will flash it up for all those Turtle fans out there. Apologies. I had this figure as well. This was one that I had. I remember I had, and then he disappeared. I lost it. I don't know if I traded it or whatever. It was one of those distant memories that came back to me later on in my childhood. I was like, I wonder what happened to him. Couldn't remember for the life of me what he was from or anything. I just remember he was a very cool rabbit. And he's come from the Turtles as well, hence why I had him. So this one he has got his like armor pads here, so it's little bits that I've got to add on his arms as well. He's missing on his armor. I can probably hunt those down. I don't know how easy that is to find. Even if I don't, he's a very, very cool looking guy to kind of have up there on display at some point, especially next to this guy. So at some point, I will add the Turtles in there as well. Very, very cool. Now, I couldn't leave there without trying to come away with something wrestling related. One thing the Vintage Toy Monster does have is an absolutely fantastic wrestling display. Sort of a whole cabinet there. And there's Hasbro's in there. There are some of the newer ones, like the Mattel stuff, the Jack stuff. They got some real vintage, early 90s memorabilia in there, the merchandise type thing. I had to add another one to my Hasbro collection. I couldn't find many of these. Now, I've had recurring dreams as an adult. I find myself in toy shops that are just cover a wall of wrestling figures, wrestling videos, magazines I've never seen before. And I almost have free reign to just go in and just grab whatever I can. Vintage Toy Monster was almost like that. I walked in and right down by the door, there was a big plastic tub labeled up wrestling figures. And I was like, I'm in my element straight away. Rifling through there. Sadly, they were what I call the newer type, this kind of ruthless aggression type era. I wasn't into that. I don't really know that era. It doesn't heart with me. It doesn't resonate with me at all. I couldn't find anything in there that I wanted, so I looked at the shelf, at the hooks where I found Shredder and the other turtle guy with no name, and there was the IRS there, and I was like, you know what, I'm in for the Hasbro's. He wasn't very much money. I'm gonna nab him. When I was at the counter waiting to pay, there was a guy in front of me I started talking to, and he had also nabbed from the same location, a Hasbro. He got the Macho King. So I was just a little slow on that, otherwise I could have had him as well. But I got IRS to add into the Hasbro collection. So that's very cool. I used to like him because you could do a lot with him. His action was, I call, fairly inoffensive. It doesn't interrupt playability, which was obviously the big thing as kids. And then this little thing before I was leaving, I thought I'm going to have a look at the comics because I'm starting to get into them as well. I found this, had to have it. Pro Wrestling Illustrated. When you talk about some of the independent wrestling magazines of my day, Pro Wrestling Illustrated was one of the ones that I had to try and get whenever I saw on the shelves at all. So it was great to pick this one up. This is from April 1992. So again, such a cool time. This is around that time when I got into it. I was probably about 6 months or so into wrestling fandom at this point. And it was building up, I believe. I haven't opened this to have a look yet. It's building up, I believe, to Super Brawl 2, which was staying against Luger for the WCW World title. So that's going to look great. I've got a couple of others. Thanks to my sister, when she's been out in America, she's nabbed me a couple of, I don't think they were PWI. I think they were the Wrestle America or something. There's so many of them out there. But I've got some early 90s magazines to put that with. Just thought I'd add those on at the end there. Where I go from here, I don't know. I'm going to carry on adding to the collection, but as far as sort of this feature goes, my journey that I started with is pretty much done. I would say, it was the Galoobs that I was aiming for. I said right at the start that was what I was aiming to achieve, and I have now done that. Yes, we have other arms of the collection which are added to along the way. Almost like happy accidents, as Bob Ross would say. I needed something else to plug those gaps when the Galoob hunt was slowing down a little bit. But I'm not probably going to be buying at the pace I have done. I'm probably not going to be worrying too much about filming the unboxing everything, because one of the reasons I've had all these boxes mount up is because I needed to find the time to be able to do them for this. Saying that, I do have some pre-orders of new figures. There's ones that I just didn't want to pass up on, and I've got those ready to arrive. I think they all release around that same time in the autumn, sort of October, November time. So I've got incoming Diamond Stud, courtesy of Top Rope Collectibles. So I am going to keep adding to the Galoob collection with those, because I think it's a fantastic line. It will go nicely with PN News, because it was another one that was meant to be out. They are also doing some fantastic new figures of their own, of other guys that weren't in the Galoob line or lined up to be in the Galoob line. Marcus Alexander Bagwell, they've got Paul Orndorff coming. And I think they've also got a John DeVad one as well, and Norman the Lunatic. So I will definitely keep adding to that. So I've got him to turn up. I've also pre-ordered. I managed to get in on the pre-order for the Zombie Sailor Toys, I think it was, Owen Hart. So the King of Hearts 1994 type, you could say 94, 95 type Owen Hart. They're releasing it. I think it is probably the only official Owen Hart figure that is going to be out there. Apart from obviously the AEW ones they've done, but as in terms of the Rocket, the King of Hearts Owen Hart, it's the only one that I've seen is being released. So I've got my name down for that, and I've also got my name down for the Make a Difference era Far 2, because it obviously needs to be in my class of 95, 96. So what I might do is I might do odd little updates here and there. I'll have some unboxing videos that I've already done that I will upload to the channel over the course of the next few weeks. But you'll probably see me mostly back. I'll be back in the autumn at some point, just giving you an update on when these new arrivals come in. And, I'll update you, show you what the collection is looking like then. But before I go, one final thank you to everyone who has supported these videos, continues to support the channel. Obviously, while I'm away, you can enjoy everything I've got on the channel. There's my Once Upon a Turnbuckle podcast. You've got my Dead Men Talk podcast as well for anyone interested in, music, writing, and all that. It's my other creative endeavors. I've got some great interviews up there, and keep supporting my socials as well. Drop by, say hi, keep sharing, liking, commenting on the channel. Again, I'll put my socials up here. So I'm on Instagram here, and then over here you can find my Facebook over here. So yeah, thank you to everyone who continues to support, and I shall see you. Let's just take one final look and see what we've actually achieved in the last 5 months. Very impressive. I'll see you again. Bye.
If you enjoyed this episode, please take a moment to like, share, and hit the subscribe button. Also follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Once Upon a Turnbuckle to keep updated about all future shows.